crisis. Now the investigators are there.
But you have no...
No dogs. No dogs.
You're in trouble?
Actually,
is this a sign of the sea?
There's a message. Every day it's progress.
Reconciliation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because you know.
Doctors for former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, who's been in a coma for nearly 8 years now, say his vital body organs have failed and he is close to death. The former premier has been on life support at a medical centre near Tel Aviv. He suffered a massive stroke in January 2006 and has been in a coma since. He was Israel's prime minister from 2001 until 2006.
After the first winter storm of 2014 dumped as much as 2 feet of snow, crippling travel and causing at least 11 deaths. A state of emergency has been declared in New York and New Jersey. And we're going to get an update on the storm's path from Janice Dean at the Weather Center in a minute. And then we're going to talk with Molly Line. She's in South Boston.
Let's take a look at some of the video that we got from yesterday, because we received over 2 feet of snow in Massachusetts. In Central Park, we got 6 inches. Hats off to the local meteorologists, because I think they really got this one right. Sometimes we really hear it when we get the forecast wrong. But the snow totals were right on, and the temperatures were really frigid. We had wind chills below 0 overnight, blizzard conditions with winds gusting 35 miles per hour from Long Island to coastal Maine. We had school cancellations in a lot of the major cities, and, you know, things are digging out right now, but we have another snowstorm on the way that we're going to continue to track. And I just want to make mention that temperatures in the northern plains and upper Midwest are frigid. We could have one of the coldest NFL games at Green Bay on Sunday. The temperature is going to be around -5, so we will continue to monitor that. Folks are going to go out to Green Bay. -5, but when the wind chill, it's going to feel like -25, -30. So it could go down as one of the top 5 coldest NFL games. The coldest was back in 1967, I think, when it was -13 in Green Bay. But here's our next storm system real quick. Blizzard for the northern plains, another Arctic blast. Colder than the last one. So the coldest air of the season we have not seen yet. It is coming, if you can believe it. Coldest air of the season we have not seen yet. It is coming, if you can believe it. We could see historic temperatures in Chicago down towards St. Louis and Minneapolis, with temperatures, daytime temperatures in the minus teens on Monday and Tuesday. So a lot of winter to get through. Dana, back to you.
Winter storms, they used to just be named by a number, so like the blizzard of 84. Why now do we have names for them? This is Hercules.
This is Hercules.
We don't, here at the Fox News Center, we don't name the storms. There's only one news organization, which will go unmentioned, that name these storms.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I guess other media outlets are kind of catching on. It is a sort of an advertising ploy, I think. And it's working, obviously.
I admire Fox for not doing it, because I think it's ridiculous.
We don't follow that.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Let's now go to Fox's Molly Line in Quincy, Massachusetts, where it was 20 below this morning. Molly.
She's frozen. She can't speak.
Where is she?
Absolutely. Freezing. It's still actually frigidly cold right now. The sun is down. It's dark. Beautiful Christmas lit here in the Quincy Center. Behind me, the cars creeping by. Tough commute still out there this evening. Thankfully, a lot of people decided to skip heading into work today. The governor, of course, canceling the government today, closing down the government and asking also private businesses to hold their employees home as well. And part of that is because the temperatures have been so frigidly cold. Tonight, it's expected to get down to -1. The wind chill, as you mentioned, even lower than that in those negative double digits. But the one good benefit of this low temperature is the snow. The snow is super fluffy. It just disappears when you throw it up in the air. And that's making it a little bit easier to handle, which is a good thing, especially when you have nearly 2 feet of snow in those communities north of Massachusetts. And as Janice was saying, we're expecting another cold blast next week. The bright side for this weekend, tomorrow is expected to get up to the 20s, and then on Sunday into the 40s. So we should see some of this melt before we get hit with that next field of cold temperatures. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Molly. We're glad that we could get you here.
A lot going on in the Middle East, including news of Ariel Sharon's failing health. Israel's former prime minister is in critical condition. He's been in a coma since suffering a stroke in 2006. For more on Sharon's health and thoughts on the Middle East peace efforts and those talks, joined by Graham Bannerman. He's met with Sharon several times, and he's also an expert on the Middle East. So let's start with Sharon. Give us your impressions on him, your thoughts as his condition continues to deteriorate. He's been in a coma for some time. I guess we knew this day was coming. Your thoughts on him as a man and his legacy?
It's a tragedy what's happened to Sharon. 8 years in a coma, no one deserves that sort of life. But Sharon is one of the more interesting people one has ever talked to. He is complex, he's intelligent, he's devoted to Israel, and he comes from a generation of Israelis who grew up before the state of Israel came into existence. So therefore he lived with Arabs, he understood Arabs, and he could talk to Arabs. But he also had the ability to change his personality depending on whom he was talking.
Interesting guy. Let me ask you about the peace efforts. Are you optimistic? I'd read somewhere where you're kind of a pessimist because you've gone through you've been on this merry-go-round several times, dating back to the Carter administration. I mean, is there anything in place here that gives you hope?
Well, yes, I think there is certain things that give you hope, but no one can be an optimistic about a peace process. The reason you have hope is for this seems like the Americans are willing to put forward the effort of putting a piece of paper on the table as a framework and how to move forward. If you look back to 1978, that's what they negotiated at Camp David in September of '78. It was a framework agreement for the peace treaty.
That's what they negotiated at Camp David in September of '78. It was a framework agreement for the peace treaty.
But then it took another year and a half before a peace treaty was actually achieved. So what they're trying to do now, it appears, and those of us are all on the outside and we don't know for sure, is they seem to be trying to put such a framework in position so they have something to work on to negotiate over the next several years, not finishing everything up in April.
Clock's ticking. Kerry's back. Is there anything he can do to gin the process along, do you think?
Oh, it will take Kerry, and it may even take some intervention by President Obama at some certain steps, because the framework itself will be very difficult to get to.
Take some intervention by President Obama at some certain steps, because the framework itself will be very difficult to get to.
I mean, look how hard it was at Camp David with Carter and Sadat and Begin. Even though they were committed to it, they almost closed it down and walked away from it. You need that commitment. If they can't get the framework, then there will never be a prospect for peace.
You had written somewhere about the decline of influence for the United States. You mentioned Great Britain, that the folks in the Middle East now call it Britain, not Great Britain. Yeah. And the United States has also seen a decline in its influence. How much is at stake for this administration when it comes to this issue?
I don't think the administration has a lot at stake. I think the administration sees that peace in the Middle East is something that's in the national interest of the United States as a very important for our overall objectives. Security of Israel, supply of oil, and the traditional things we look to the Middle East for. Therefore, peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis are an essential element of that for American national interest, and I think that's why they're involved in it.
Graham Bannerman, thank you so much for coming in. We're going to have to leave it there. Appreciate your time.
Israel says it's carried out a second successful test of its upgraded Arrow missile system. The test carried out over the Mediterranean was the second flight of the missile system, but it did not intercept any target. Israel deployed the previous version, named Arrow 2, more than a decade ago. Tel Aviv says it has scored an almost 90% success rate in live trials. Israeli officials have predicted that Arrow 3 could be deployed by next year. The Pentagon and US firm Boeing are partners in the project. Arrow is the long-range part in Israel's three-layer missile systems that include the so-called Iron Dome and David's Sling.
Travelers regretting the effort to try to get home because it's tough to do today. After the holidays, they're facing icy and snowy roads, thousands of flight cancellations, and general discomfort from a major winter storm. At least 13 people are dead, and another weather event may be on the way.
And another weather event may be on the way.
Correspondent Molly Line is in Quincy, Massachusetts tonight.
The first dig out of 2014 was in some respects helped by the bitter cold that arrived with the year's first storm. Single-digit, bone-chilling temperatures kept the snow light and fluffy. But there was a lot of it, almost 2 feet in parts of Massachusetts. South of Boston, wind-whipped waves lashed the shore, raising fears of coastal flooding. At times, blizzard conditions caused whiteouts, visibility near zero, grounding planes at Boston's Logan Airport and leaving some passengers with no option but to sleep at the terminal.
We were patient and hoped for the best, but unfortunately, we spent the night in the chapel. And it was warmer there, and we felt safe. And that's what we did.
She was far from alone. From Los Angeles to Miami, Atlanta to New York, more than 20,000 flights were canceled or delayed.
Got to Atlanta and found out that our stewardess was stuck on a Chicago flight and that we were ultimately delayed until they finally canceled us last night. And most of our passengers got stuck until Monday.
Determined to stay ahead of the weather, New York and New Jersey declared states of emergency. 6 inches were recorded in Central Park. Even after the snow ended, Mayor Bill de Blasio urged New Yorkers to stay home.
It's very slick out there. It's hard to drive out there. There's the wind, the ice. There's a lot of blowing snow still, so that's going to affect visibility. If you do not need to travel today, please stay home.
Those sentiments were echoed in Massachusetts, where Governor Deval Patrick told state employees to stay home and urged businesses to give workers the day off so crews could clear roads. And there's more to come.
Saturday and Sunday, yet another winter storm is set to hit portions of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio with more snow accumulation. But I think one of the bigger stories with this next system is how cold it's going to be behind it, possibly even colder temperatures than we have seen so far this season.
And the cold will continue. The temperatures are expected to plummet tonight. The snow may be done, but here in Boston, the low is expected to be -1. Brett?
Whoa. All right, Molly, stay warm. Thank you.
Still in the midst of a powerful winter storm, parts of the US Midwest are now blanketed by snow, and there won't be any respite. Further snow has been forecast for some areas, and temperatures could plummet to 30 degrees below zero. The nasty weather, which started on Tuesday, is pushing into the northeast, and it's ruined travel plans for thousands of people. Approximately 100 million in 22 states found themselves in the path of the storm, which was expected to be at its fiercest from late Thursday into Friday morning. Illinois received 0.5 metre or more of snow and severe wind chills, grounding hundreds of flights in and out of Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. In Chicago's urban areas, 373 snowplows have been mobilised to salt and clear roads. On Thursday alone, police in the state of Michigan received over 500 reports of traffic accidents. Some schools, public libraries and other facilities were also suspended due to the heavy snow.